Hello, I'm Baltmatrix, and today we're taking a look at MPM-17 Starscream, the movie Starscream figure. I picked this figure up over at Target.com. Yes, that's right, Target.com. Weird. Anywho, this is the figure. It took just a couple days to get to me, and it's something all right. Now, I've never been a fan of the Michael Bay movieverse look to a lot of figures. It just doesn't work for me, but I do respect the designs, sort of. This design is, well, it's definitely different. The figure comes with 3 accessories. All are mountable underneath this ginormous undercarriage. If you thought we were getting a plain Transformer that didn't have an undercarriage, sorry to disappoint. The first of which is this set or series of missile pods with stabby bits. All very, very soft plastic that can move and spin around. It doesn't do anything else. Next, the other bit is this Buzzsaw, which I believe we saw in one movie. Oh, and when you try to take things off and move things around, my figure has a real hard time staying together. That's probably due to a mistransformation. I'll talk about the transformation a little bit later. The Buzzsaw spins freely, but does not turn or pose, which is a shame. But yeah, this pegs into the forearm, and this pegs into the other forearm when in robot mode. More on that when we get there. The last accessory the figure comes with is this minigun that spins, but there's no gimmick, or there's nothing that can actually make the minigun spin, so you can't push anything to make it spin. It just spins via your fingers. Now, it can be placed in 2 different locations. 1, directly underneath the pilot, and 2, directly underneath the nose cone, but that just looks silly. Now, I mentioned that this is a big bird mode. Well, it is in F22, and it is currently at a 9-inch wingspan. And then lengthwise, it's over a foot long from the very back here to the very tip of the nose cone. In this jet mode, you can just look at it. Other than putting the weapons underneath, it really can't do anything other than you can fold up that landing gear and fold up these landing gears. That's it. And that's all it does. Those wings fold down and kind of separate for the transformation, and the rear wings move up and down. And now you may be wondering, Bolt, something looks off. Well, I think I have mistransformed. I don't think I've got it transformed back into jet mode correctly, because these back pieces are supposed to be sticking out, but they're supposed to be sticking out more like this, but that pushes the tail elevators up and down. So I'm not entirely sure what I done wrong here. I thought I followed the directions, but the directions suck. Now, these directions are the typical Hasbro annoyance. They are in whitish gray backgrounds, a gray background for each step, and then a gray picture with dark purple over the gray. So my old man eyes can't see some of these steps. And this transformation is intricate enough that you really need to see what's going on, and sometimes you just can't. So I don't know how YouTubers did this without the directions. Well, no, I actually kind of do, because I kind of had to figure some stuff out on my own, because good God, these things were too hard to see, especially if you're in yellow light. If you're in like studio white light, it makes it much easier to see. But if you're in like normal halogen lights or normal, lights that are inside your home that are slightly yellow, it's really hard to see what the hell's going on with these. Now, just before we get into the transformation, I'd like to show off a couple of pictures by my good buddy Grim Lockamus. He has not only the Studio Series Starscream, but he also has the original MP Starscream, or Masterpiece Starscream from the movie line. So here you have pictures of the figure in robot mode comparisons and jet mode comparisons. And looking at Grim's pictures, you could tell I do have my jet mistransformed. The back of the plane mode is a little bit off on mine. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into the transformation now, and let's go!
The transformation itself isn't entirely super difficult, but it is definitely not fun. You start off by unfolding the undercarriage of the plane. That big chunk you saw was the legs, and then we fold out the arms and the shoulders, and just kind of rearrange everything. The back of the plane pulls up and doubles over to form the back of the jet or the figure, and then Starscream's head flips out, and the rest of this just isn't that much fun. The legs are very easy to transform. There is some twisting and some odd turning involved, but the rest of the transformation isn't very intuitive, nor, as I said, fun. I do miss a few spots here, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but it's it's not intuitive. There is a flow, which is obvious once you really start getting into it, but the flow isn't super intuitive. I keep harping on this, but it would be a lot better if the directions were more clear and more concise about what the hell is actually going on. There are entire swaths of the instructions that are illegible. They just are. I do have to admit, though, there is a lot of interesting engineering happening here with the arms and the shoulders. They peg in interesting ways, and the legs, and especially the feet, transform really neatly. They flip in and around themselves. However, getting the ankles pegged in and having them stay there is a chore.
The robot mode that we end up with is probably the best iteration of movie Starscream that we've ever gotten. It's it's pretty darn good, and if you like this design aesthetic, you're going to love the look of this figure. There are some problems I have with the figure, but we'll get into that in a minute. Now, I did screw up the transformation in a couple of key spots. I forgot to peg in the back correctly at the bottom, and it's not showing up here, but I didn't transform the wings correctly. The transformation is not fun. I do not like this transformation. It is annoying and grating, and the first time you do it, it's just not fun. Now on the back, the part I specifically did not transform correctly is this section back here. These little flaps are supposed to fold down, then in, and these little panels will flip around and peg that into place. So that will hold the entire backpack snugly into place. The other part I didn't transform correctly are the wings. I had them out like that. You're supposed to fold them up and then push them in to behind the head so they get more of a swept back look. Like that, as opposed to just having the wings sticking up off to the side. Now, in terms of weapon gimmicks, we've got the Buzzsaw and the, I guess, missile pod, we'll say. Oh, and we also have the minigun. So the minigun can be pegged into either forearm on Starscream. You just move the hand out of the way and peg in the minigun. That's it. For the hands, that's a little bit more difficult. It's not hard, it's just a little more complicated, I should say. Take the fingers and collapse the hand at the palm and flip the fingers all the way back, and then take the thumbs and fold them back. And there's a peg on the back of each weapon pod, right behind there, that will peg into the front of the wrist that opens up. And then that is not that hard to get pegged in, and then there's a peg on the back which pegs into the forearm and gives us the weapon pod. Unfortunately, once you do this, you only have up and down movement. You don't have swivels or side to side movement, unfortunately, but hey, at least the Buzzsaw still spins. And here we have Screamer with both weapons attached. It really doesn't matter which weapon you use on which arm. They work either way. Now, a major issue that I have with my Starscream is specifically with the left arm, and that is it is not strong enough to hold itself up. If you follow me on Twitter, you've already seen this, so the little ratchet joint that is in the shoulder is just way too loose. I don't even think you can hear it clicking. As opposed to the other side, there are no problems. The head sculpt is good. If you're a fan of this design, this head sculpt is probably the best we've ever gotten. I still think that the Studio Series Voyager class figure is my favorite version of Starscream, but this works pretty darn well. The nice red beady eyes. Though what's weird is, and it's not showing up on camera, the left eye is up front. You can easily see it in person. The right eye is mispainted. And it's also seems like it's slid back in the head for some reason. Also, I can't open the mouth on this thing. My figure, for whatever reason, the mouth will not open, and I'm not even going to try to open it for fear of breaking it. Head posability is side to side, and then you do have this up and down movement that moves the chest a little bit. Shoulders are on ratchets, but as I said, my one left shoulder is busted, and then ratchets for in and out. There is a ratchet for the elbow joint, and then a swivel at the elbow joint, and the hand is on a swivel. And then the hands have multi-finger, well, sort of multi-finger articulation. The thumbs are on a hinge and a swivel. And then the hinge in the middle of the wrist and hinges for the tips of the fingers. The fingertips themselves are not individually knuckled, unfortunately. No torso articulation to speak of due to the transformation. Ratchets forward and back. Ratchets in and out. A thigh swivel. There is a hinge here for the transformation, then it pegs in. Ratchets for that knee. Ratchets for the second knee. Swivel, and then feet do move, though they come unpegged way too easily. You have to constantly fight to get them repegged in, and then as soon as you go to move it again, it unpegs. So you can't actually put the legs straight. It has to be bent. Otherwise, the figure's ankles aren't going to be strong enough to hold it up. And then there is side-to-side movement that are lightly ratcheted. Just lightly. The figure is immensely top-heavy, which is to be expected. I mean, there's nothing you could do about it. Given the fact that there's die-cast in this thing, these shiny metal bits are die-cast, and then there's painted die-cast on the arms, there's die-cast in the crotch, and then there's metal pins throughout the entire figure. So, yeah, it's going to be heavy. And it's also incredibly loose at the same time. The wings, while posable, come unpegged very easily. The shoulders themselves aren't really pegged in any way that really hold them there. See how much wiggle there is? And then the ratchets in the legs, while strong, are still not strong enough to hold the damn thing up. Even though the figure does have some issues in terms of posability, that doesn't mean you can't get some good poses out of it. I actually do kind of like the fact that it does have the ability to pose in different ways as opposed to, some figures. But I'm just not loving it. I'm just not loving this figure, especially considering how much it costs. In terms of scale, it is a bit bigger than MP-10 Prime, and that's fine, I guess, considering you have a Mack truck versus an F-22, which, good lord, those F-22s are big. So is this a figure that you, the discerning Transformers fan, should pick up? That's a really hard question, and that's one you're going to have to answer yourself. In all honesty, I picked this figure up because I really wanted to review it, and I wanted to see how it turned out. I'm not impressed. Actually, no, that's not fair. I am impressed that they got the transformation down and they've ended up with a pretty good-looking robot mode. I don't like the jet mode, and I despise the transformation. And for the cost, I really feel like there should be more. We should have more accessories. There should be at least the option for lights on the eyes. And I still don't think that this thing is painted correctly. I think that it should be a deeper brown or a copper color to better match the movie. But that's just me. If you are a Starscream fan and you love this mold, or you love this design, I should say, you should go ahead and pick this up. Just know it's going to be pricey, and there are probably going to be QC issues. When I put the QC issue of the arm up on Twitter, I had like 15 to 20 people messaging me who have gotten a hold of this figure that yes, they have the exact same problem on the exact same arm. So this is not an isolated case. Maybe the first run is just problematic. Who knows? I would say hold off on picking this up and wait for it to go on sale somewhere, because of the price, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it right now. I would much rather you go out and hunt down the original Masterpiece Starscream, or get a hold of the Studio Series Starscream. That is a vastly better figure. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go buy that Studio Series figure because it made me want this figure made me want that figure more. So folks, thank you for watching this video review. Let me know what you think of the figure down in the comments. Be sure and hit those like and subscribe buttons. And yeah, that's it. That's all I can say. Thanks again. I've been Baltmatrix. I'll catch you next time.